I don't hide from it. Let me just briefly say a few words about other things, because Joel Edwards is not actually the only story. The addition of sexual orientation to our mandate presented a whole host of other challenges. We inherited a legacy from the organisations that came from us, but none of them had expertise in the area of sexual orientation. It hasn't stopped us from working to make a difference in the lives of LGBT people in the UK. The helpline's taken over 300 calls relating to sexual orientation last year. The legal division's taken on over 20 cases in the last year and a bit. Our LGBT stakeholder group is, I think, very lively. And then next month we'll be publishing several pieces of research that will improve our evidence base. But there's a great deal more to do. We think that there are many things that we need to begin to deal with. For example, the position, or we can help with, I suppose, the position in schools, for example. A generation of campaigning, advocacy and lobbying has led us to where we are today. But there are new issues to deal with. The type of diversity and difference we face now doesn't fit into neat categories any longer. Can't always be defined by what people call an equality strand. Campaigners are catching up with what sociologists have known for years, but our identities are not one-dimensional. We are the consequence of a confluence of characteristics, experiences and influences. People are not completely defined by their race or their gender or their faith or their sexuality. That's not going to come as a surprise to anybody in this room. Every day you will find yourself influenced by both your faith and your sexuality or your gender identity. And you will see things through the prism of that unique combination. But we think that we can play a part in helping to understand and to support some of these changes. And as an institution, I think we need to talk to some other institutions. The challenges posed to gay, lesbian and trans people of faith in engaging with their leadership is a case in point. In a report published last year, a YouGov survey of 2,000 people concluded that the leadership of many of the UK's major faith groups was out of step with what congregations actually thought and felt about homosexuality. On the whole, it is no longer a control or central issue for them. We think that the new Equality Bill is more in tune with where we are, trying to extend rights and protections to promote the case for greater equality. That is why we support it. We support it because it proposes extending the public sector duty to sexual orientation, transgender status and religion and belief. And that will change the way that public bodies behave. It means that local authorities will have to think again before they cut spending for specialised LGBT services, or schools having to show what they're doing to prevent children from being the target of homophobic bullying. We intend to monitor closely the progress of public authorities in meeting certain standards and work with them if those standards are not met, and where necessary, to take enforcement action against persistent failure. Second, the laws that have protected LGBT communities from discrimination will be extended to cover the trans community for the first time, and I think this is an immense step forward. Lastly, let me touch on the issue of exemptions so I can be absolutely clear. The Commission doesn't have a role in the internal debates of the religious institutions, and that's where everybody in this room has a job, to engage with leaders of your churches, mosques, temples and synagogues. But where religious groups work to provide goods, facilities and services, we are unambiguous. There is no exemption from equality. It is a basic human right. It shouldn't be compromised because of the school you go to or the place you work. And in this context, religious leaders have to ask themselves whose interest they are serving when they ask for exemptions for their organisations. Legislative change and parliamentary debate can only take us so far. We need to work harder on good relations. And I can say quite a lot about this, but I am running way over my time. I just want to say one specific thing, coming back to the point I made right at the very beginning about visibility. Not all kinds of discrimination and inequality are the same. We have different characteristics. In racial discrimination, visibility isn't the problem. Invisibility isn't the problem, rather. Visibility is the problem. I think for people who are lesbian, gay, bisexual, their invisibility becomes the difficulty. We want to tackle this head on. At our last board meeting in March, our commission decided, based on a joint proposal from Joel Edwards and Neil Wooding, many of you will know from Stonewall, who I'd asked to think about these issues together, to set up a series of roundtable discussions between people of faith and people from the LGBT and transgender communities, led by them to discuss and explore the differences. And that follows from a similar successful programme we ran in Wales last year. And what we hope is that will begin to give people a safe space to explore differences and come to some meaningful conclusions that will inform our work. Now, this is an important moment for the Commission. It's an important moment for your movement. I think recent years have brought about a sea change in attitudes to sexual orientation. There's an argument for greater equality across the country. There's an opportunity for greater protections. The acceptance of civil partnerships is probably one of the most remarkable social changes that I've seen in my lifetime. But there's so much more to do. The battles for those rights aren't over. We need to be also alive to the fact that there are more complicated battles that address the changing nature of difference, and that we need to be aware of those too. The conflicts or the encounter between faith and sexual orientation may be the crucible in which we begin to forge some of the tools that will help us to deal with those complex interactions. This is a fight, intellectual and practical, which you, as a group, are well placed to lead, and one that will hopefully bear fruit as the struggle for greater equality continues over the next generation. Thank you.